Well, Anne, thank you so much. I also would like to thank Melissa, Anne, Bonnie, Carol for inviting me here. Also to my good friend Nina and your sister Elizabeth for being such a good host today. You mentioned the High Museum, and the High Museum I'm very proud of. It's a fantastic museum, and we do like to say we're one of the most important museums in the Southeast, but you know what, after today, I'm not sure we have so much on you all here after going to the North Carolina Museum of Art. What an amazing museum. Actually, I'm not sure we have anything on you all here. Spectacular museum. What a great day. Also, I wanted to just thank the Raleigh Fine Arts Society. The Raleigh Fine Arts Society is super important. We've got, I'm from Chicago. I was in Hawaii. Now in Atlanta, and similar societies exist in these different cities, and they serve a very, very important role, and that is to be an advocate, to advocate for artists, to support artists, to give them moral support and also material support as well, which is critical, right? Being an artist is not easy. It's a hard job. Being an artist is really very hard. Particularly when there's very little coming, very little reward coming, at least material reward. So the other kinds of rewards that are available are shows like this and recognition by societies like this to provide an audience and feedback and a platform to share your work, to share your ideas. It's really important, and it's such a great thing to do, especially today. We need more organizations like the Raleigh Fine Arts Society, so well done. I was going to give you a lecture on something I'm working on right now, and I thought, well, why do that? Because I walked through the show with everyone yesterday, and I was blown away. So when you see these images online, they're very little, and I do my best to do homework and see them as clearly as I can, but truly, I was blown away by the quality of the work in this show. And so this is about you all, about the society, about this moment. So I cobbled together some slides, so bear with me. I'm going to make this up on the fly, but I thought I'd start with my original, 2 slides from my original talk, because it's a project I'm in right now. And the artists in the room will know when you're in the middle of a project, it's hard to get your head out of it. And I'm writing under deadline, tearing what's left of my hair out. So I thought it was a good place to start with the work of Al Taylor. And also, you know, some of you who are a general audience in the room may, be wondering what what in the wide world of sports is that guy thinking? So I thought I'll also include some slides that relate to some of the works in the show. So Al Taylor is the artist who is on the screen here. Al Taylor died in 1999. But like me, he had this passion for Hawaii. I lived in Hawaii for 6 years. And his work was all about vision. Artists have a special vision. They speak a special language. It's a language that is special in many ways. It's intellectual. It's also often intuitive, but it can also be very mechanical. It can be something that is practical or impractical. It can be ephemeral or it can be concrete. But it's a language that says something that no other kind of language can say. And so this artist, Al Taylor, was very interested in that idea, and that idea expressed through vision, and that there is a special kind of vision, and you can quantify it or you can be very poetic about it. For me, I think about Al Taylor and Hawaii and vision when it comes to hula. So if any hula dancers in the room, you know that hula dancers make their gestures and their face, their eyes follow their hands, but their eyes are about 3 or 4 inches above their hands and they look about 100 yards out. So they're not focused on their hands are moving in concert, or rather their eyes are moving in concert with their hands. They're not moving in persuasion of their hands. So in other words, it's not a technical sort of slavish thing where your hand is always trying to catch up with your eye or vice versa. It's become something that is holistic in a way. And so hula for me summed that up for Al Taylor, given his love for Hawaii. And this is a drawing of hula hoops and coffee cans. It's a sculpture, actually. He made sculpture from drawing and drawing from sculpture. And these are sculptures of hula hoops with these tin cans from coffee that were used as sighting devices. So if you remember what I just said about how hula dances kind of look above and beyond, he constructed these things as objects or instruments to see through and to kind of materialize that special kind of vision as sighting devices or rangefinders in a way. And I included this piece. It's in the show I'm doing at the end of November. It's called Dixie. And it really summarizes this idea of a special kind of vision. It's obviously the bars from the Confederate flag. And in the lower right, you see it sort of unfurled. And in front of that is those bars that are drawn on a piece of transparent mylar. But it's rolled in a tube. So the tube becomes a prism or a lens, which then casts a shadow on the wall behind it. So the bars then become abstracted, they become untangled, and then retangled, so as to suggest that everyone's vision is unique. Everyone's interpretation of the visual field is unique. And symbols can be constructed, deconstructed, and reconstructed at whim. And that's what one of the special skills that artists have to do. So with that, I'm going to jump into some of the works in the show. And apologies, I don't have examples from everyone's work, but examples that really moved me, especially given this idea of a kind of vision or a facility connected to a vision. The facility of, again, the hands in coordination with the eye, so that there is a craft that's very important about what artists do. And this artist, David Sackett, there are two works by David Sackett. I believe, I may be wrong at the tintype, but the tintype photography, very diminutive works about this big. They're exquisite, absolutely beautiful works of art. And if you look closely, you begin to see this face emerging from the emulsion on the piece of metal, this wonderful kind of face staring out at you. At the same time, it's a painting. It's painted with gouache as well. There's this geometric abstraction that starts to recede or advance, rather, from the pictorial space of the portrait in a very evocative way that straddles abstraction and figuration, but also conceptual art and figurative portraiture. Another work in the show by Mark Flowers, here, The Day Job, he says in the catalog, refers to the fact that many artists, of course, have to have day job because there is very infrequently, for many, that kind of material reward. So whether you teach or whether you have another kind of job, this work is about that. But I am drawn to it because there's a lot of abstraction in the show, like the previous work I showed, that straddles abstraction and figuration. And it's something that also Al Taylor's work did. It straddled aspects of realism, depicting in the best possible way the coffee cans and the hula hoops, but also by doing so, creating some kind of abstraction. So it exists in both realms. And that's a unique feature, I think, of a lot of the abstract work in the show, such as Joyce Watkins King, her work here, which looks like, when I first saw it, I thought it was a photograph. I thought it was a collage of photographs that had to do with geometries and all kinds of smart mathematical ideas, which they are, but it's actually achieved through material, mesh material and other kinds of material that's an assemblage, a collage of three-dimensional materials on this panel. So there's four main panels, and then with the upper left, that panel is broken down into further fields of abstraction. And this is, again, coming back to Al Taylor, one of his works called All Thumbs. And a humorous take. Al Taylor is very funny. But he, if you remember the idea of sighting and vision and creating instruments for sighting and range finding, the old cliche of the painter, sizing up the space and the perspective of a picture with his thumb. He's doing that here, and I thought of that series of prints by Taylor when I saw this work, because it becomes a stylized or abstracted version of that with that thumb-like form in the foreground, and then also these wonderful kinds of geometric shapes and structures that surround it by Ashland Browning, which suggest an architecture. It's again straddling the figurative, the architectonic, and the abstract. This is a drawing by Louise Bourgeois I was thinking of Louise Bourgeois when I saw this work by Brian Russell. Louise Bourgeois' work is very much so fraught with an emotional intensity, a very personal emotional intensity about her family life, and also being a woman in the world of modern art. In modernism, it was tough to be a woman, let me tell you. So her work was about that. And here we have this image of sort of an ocean, sort of a psychic or psychical kind of ocean, or the depths of which she often plumbed in her work. And Brian Russell's really beautiful drawing. This is a really lovely piece of has the same kind of emotional intensity, but like the Bourgeois, using line quality and sort of obscuring these wonderful nets and skeins of line work with this dark sort of charcoal image on top, sort of beginning to obscure that as if it's a heavy kind of psychical weight bearing down on the piece. Benjamin Knight's painting, you see it's a large abstract painting, quite beautiful. And I was thinking about this painting in relation to architecture. So if the earlier work we were looking at that had to do with sort of architectonic form and geometries is more literal, this to me is more figurative, or maybe it is more literal, because what drew me to that idea, that conclusion, is the scumbling, really beautiful scumbling. The bands of color are literally like this wide, and it's like physical, very physical, and they're scumbled over the ground as if it were like a fresco or like a wall painting of graffiti. I was thinking of graffiti, but really beautiful color sensibility as well. And that brought me back to some work that I was doing with an artist, Jose Parla, who is a graffiti artist. He was a graffiti artist in Atlanta, and now he's a superstar living in Brooklyn. And we did this show where we actually reconstructed walls that are scumbled, very much like Benjamin Knight's paintings, scumbled with color, and they become abstract fields, abstract paintings that have a physicality that connects us to them in a way through architecture. And then this other work in the show by David Hyman is a photograph of a wall in Oaxaca. So interestingly, again, kind of taking that idea of street art, the street sensibility, graffiti, and also the stories that walls tell in cities like Havana or Atlanta or here in Raleigh. And to begin to wonder, what happened to that lower right register that's been overpainted? Is that a history that's lost now? But then there's a new mark made on the wall, this flower-like form, and the diagram to the left. So it's a wonderful idea to begin to look at these moments in our surroundings, and what do these things mean? What do they mean to artists, and why do they do them? And in this case, the photographer for noticing that, framing it, and offering it as a composition that has some kind of meaning. This is a painting by Norman Lewis in our collection at the High Museum. Norman Lewis was a very important African-American modernist. And it's a painting called Procession. And it's a procession of people in the evening with torches. And so it could be read either as a procession that had to do with the Ku Klux Klan, and some sort of a violent kind of event, or it could relate also to something that's celebratory and a gathering of people. So it's very ambiguous, but very beautiful and abstracted. Again, thinking about abstraction, figuration, and how artists, like many of you in the room tonight, have been able to mediate that in a way, like Patricia Woodhull. A really gorgeous painting. It might be the only landscape in the show, but a really beautiful one that has that same kind of intensity of light quality with this sort of pointillist technique that suggests maybe a late afternoon or early evening kind of a light from the sun, but also street lamps and other kinds of artificial light in obviously an urban environment with the sort of suggestion of architecture in the background and trees from maybe a square. But a lovely painting. Now shifting a bit away from abstraction, other artists deal more with figuration and also ideas in their not only visual field, but in the world that have to do with histories, personal histories, but also our shared histories. This is a photograph by Aiko Hosoe, who is one of the great post-war Japanese photographers, and really evocative, often very foreboding, anxiety-ridden images that speak to the rebuilding of Japan post Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and all the implications that a post-nuclear kind of society might elicit in a visual person. So this is a wonderful image of a figure lying, and then again another figure that takes on, this other figure to the right takes on this animalistic form as if it's a wolf or some kind of predator. I included that next to this piece, or rather Aiko Hosoe came to mind with the work of Tyler Starr, who spent some time in Japan and is making these kinds of juxtapositions of images that might seem counterintuitive. The image on the right is a sort of a Japanese popular culture TV or movie, Japanese movie monster, with this work of design. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe you can tell me, Tyler, when I see you later. But I really love that idea of this juxtaposition of unexpected kinds of images that speak to the anxiety that still exists underlying a lot of Japanese culture. Again, I'm sorry, I'm just kind of juxtaposing stuff that are lodged in my gray matters with works that I've seen here the last couple days. And this is a show that I did at the High Museum with Kiki Smith. And the image on the right is a wonderful print of Red Riding Hood, the grandmother and the granddaughter emerging from the belly of the wolf, sort of vanquishing this monster and emerging victorious, a kind of transmigration even, you know, a religious or spiritual kind of transmigration of these two souls who together defeat evil. And Chieko Murasugi, this beautiful work is quite moving in that it's like the Red Riding Hood cape. You've got this wonderful protective red color that is banishing the figures of the Ku Klux Klan. You see in the center these clannish hooded figures from her familial unit in a way. And you read her description in the catalog, it's really quite moving. It's a beautiful drawing too. And around the center you see this kind of mesh and netting, again, that creates this kind of barrier or this protective layer that allows a wonderful kind of goodness to emerge in the drawing. This is a painting I acquired by Julie Meritu, who is one of the great artists for generation. She includes these very gestural marks over top architectural renderings, and she creates skeins and all kinds of mapping, cartographic marks. And that reminded me of this picture here by Randy McNamara, which also has this wonderful sense of a network and skein of lines that could be have to do with mapping, different kinds of systems that are organic, but also geometric, architectural, urban planning, or just a sort of biological, like on a cellular level. So really evocative in the same way, to me, that Julie Meritu's work is, because it kind of can go from the micro to the macro really quite successfully. This is an image of Daniel Arsham. We just opened this show at the High Museum. Daniel is in his pagoda, a Japanese tea house in a traditional garden, Japanese garden, with objects he's created inside it. And Daniel's work is about imagining future histories where all differences are leveled, we're all the same, and we retain things. Sort of, there's an idea about cultural retention. We retain whether it's forms or traditions or languages. And in this space, he's imagining that what has sort of remained in this future is this wonderful traditional Japanese tea house and the tea ceremony and the ceremony of raking the sand in the garden. And here's Daniel raking it for us last week. The only time he raked, by the way. Nah, I shouldn't say that. This is being recorded. Don't show Daniel this. He did rake more than once. But I thought of that when I saw this work, which is, what's the title is, Let's Go Bowling. I can't tell you the title. You can look it up in your book. But it's a work that similarly suggests to me kind of a future in which there's a conflation of different cultural decorative forms that come together to suggest almost like if you like 2001, the Stargate, when Dave goes through the Stargate, all of a sudden he lands in this place that is super contemporary and the floor's glowing. But then all around it, it's decorated with 18th century French Louis XIV furniture and pure mirrors. And so there's that disjunctive quality in this work too, where you've got this geometric ball shape in the three sections of the piece, the triptych, that are either advancing toward or coming toward you, advancing toward the background or the reverse. And the background is this imaginative, evocative, but unnameable kind of cultural ornament. Really a fantastic, amazing piece of workmanship and craftsmanship and art. All right, so Elizabeth, you're going to have to I know you're going to give me, just stick with me here for a minute. I thought of this. I don't have this in the High Museum. This is at in Paris at the Musée d'Orsay. It's by Gustave Courbet. It's called Burial at Ornans. And Burial at Ornans is a really important painting because it introduced the modern to really beginning of modern painting in France. And it was really controversial because of that open grave there, the open grave pit in the center of the picture where you are looking at the picture from the perspective of the corpse. Basically, really considered disrespectful, but also a provocation, really provocative. And so I thought it was really cool that Sean Manley had taken that idea, whether you did, Sean, or not. That's what I read, this wonderful open pit here where you got these guys barbecuing, and we're looking at the picture from the point of view of this open pit. Besides that reference, which is very fanciful, and I know it's just my personal kind of fun I'm having, but it's a fantastic painting and so well balanced. The thing that really balances this painting, it anchors this painting, is that pitcher. And I don't know what's in the pitcher. Is it barbecue sauce? I don't know, but that white pitcher is what anchors the picture and around which all of the other elements revolve and make that forced perspective in the background so believable. So it's a really fantastic picture. This is the work of Kehinde Wiley, who has always made portraits of young men and women. He meets on the street, he invites them to the studio, makes their portraits so that they can stand in for historical figures in art history who are typically Caucasian or Western European, American, what have you, to appropriate the kind of strength and dignity and heroism of war heroes, of kings, and of important personages who are documented and captured throughout the history of art. So by placing young men and women of color in those roles, empowering them, and also not confusing, but rather asking us to think about our relationship to these works and the histories they tell, and consider those relationships in terms of today and the now, and imagine these figures being in a role that's empowered young men and women today from across our society and culture, being pictured and imagined in the same way. So Brandon Dudley's painting, you'll see in the gallery, sort of evokes that work of that really important work of Kehinde Wiley, but does it without the trappings of, typically Kehinde has the trappings of these paintings with the stoles and the crowns and all of that. Instead, it's a contemporary young man who's wearing his Miami Heat t-shirt, and he does, however, have a sword, which is unusual for most kids, but it's a really powerful painting, and it has a real wonderful dignity, and sort of this posture is really wonderful because of your relationship to art history and how we imagine the heroic portrait to be. This is a Basquiat in our collection at the High Museum called Cadmium, and I wanted to include it because this figure on the upper left has no eye socket. It has these X-ray eyes that are looking out, which, coming back around to my original comments about vision, suggested for Basquiat the kind of special artistic vision that he sought and he strove for as an artist, that the sort of inner vision that was not outward-looking but rather inward-looking. And therefore, there are no pupils in the eyes. It's something that suggests a kind of interiority. And this little painting by Charles Douglas, I think, is just fantastic and really gutsy. I mean, it's like, talk about chutzpah. Make a red field and put this black mask up at the top of it to suggest also the concealing identity or confusing identity, but also, again, because it's a mask covering the eyes. In this case, the eyes are vacant. They're not there. Suggests to me the same kind of ideas about a kind of vision that's special and unique to being an artist. This is an image of Tommy Smith on the left. And this is Tommy Smith's picture from the 1968 Olympics in Mexico City. I'm working with Tommy Smith on an exhibition coming up next year. And he's working with an artist, Glenn Kino, from Los Angeles. And Glenn Kino cast all of his right arm and created this bridge. You can see that gold bridge in the center of that slide is a bridge made up of Tommy's right arm cast. So to remove the arm from Tommy, to allow him to participate in the rich history that he himself created during this event, or at this moment during the Olympics, which was seen around the world. And it's also an image that we all know either from Tommy Smith, from that moment in the 68 Olympics, or from the Black Power movement. So it's something that has been connected to both. Tommy Smith's image is the most iconic image, and it's something we see repeated, and it's about, again, ideas about dignity and resistance and a kind of taking a moral stance against something that's wrong, or taking a moral stance for something that's right, whether that is hunger. I mean, Tommy's whole gesture during the Olympics was in solidarity with hungry people around the world. It was also in solidarity with the civil rights movement at home, and it was also against the South African, the apartheid governments in South Africa and Rhodesia at the time. So it was really a complex and premeditated thing that he did, and it had real meaning at the moment to him, and it still does today, and it resonates. We see it every day in the news, whether it's a sports figures or whomever. And so Karina Graves' sculpture is awesome, especially because the scale of it is not the scale of a fist. It's monumental scale. It's like the scale of a giant. And that's the kind of thing that this gesture communicates to me. It's this really courageous, giant gesture. This is a work by Lyle Ashton Harris on the right, and this is a work by Van Dyck of the Christ. Lyle Ashton Harris was evoking this idea of the Passion of Christ, more specifically of the idea of ecce homo, behold the man, connecting it to the civil rights mantra, I am a man. So this beautiful painting, it's awesome, by Frank Meyer, Big Jesus is the title. And it also communicates this idea of the persecuted martyr that Christ was, but in a way that's monumental, like that fist of Karina Graves, and in a way that also speaks to the sort of transmigration of Christ in the story of his transmigration. So anyway, great painting. I want to bring it back around to Al Taylor, who died at the age of 59. 51. My age. He died terribly young. This is one of the last things he made. It's called Bondage Duck. And I just thought that this sequence of images of the persecuted and tormented soul brought Al Taylor's last works to mind, because he knew he was dying of cancer, and this is a self-portrait of him as this kind of tortured being, physically tortured, who has this wonderful kind of spirit still alive inside that will become something when he's no longer alive. A beautiful piece, but also very funny. He retained a sense of humor up to the end. And so the idea of sort of torture, the torture of depression in this case, with Shelby Scattergood's work, is literally the image of this oppressive image of chocolate, of something that is a sludge-like material that is coming down from above, oppressing this figure who is in a state of maybe ecstasy, maybe a state of anguish, but it's a really wonderfully evocative and provocative image too. And by the way, it's not a photograph, it's a drawing with colored pencils, which is remarkable. So that's the end of my slides. We're going to go over them again. We won't want to do that. But I just wanted to, again, thank you for the opportunity for coming. I love doing this. I love meeting new artists and seeing new work and meeting new people. And to know that you're all out here doing this work gives me, heartens me, because I know I'm not alone in Atlanta. And my support of Atlanta metro area artists, and that they do great work that is at the level of anyone making work in New York or Los Angeles or Berlin or anywhere else. And we need to be the ones to advocate and support them. So thank you all. I look forward to meeting you outside. Oh, and with that.